Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1836A, and today's date is April 8th, 2019, and the title of the episode is, Have You Been Listening to the Economic Clues? Now, we know that Robert Mueller has been investigating Donald Trump for over 2 years now, and has concluded that there is no case to answer on his colluding with Russia during his election campaign. Given that news, you would expect the markets to have soared. Instead, they've reacted by tanking. Neither Trump nor his Democratic opponents are going to let this go, and there's nothing the markets hate more than political uncertainty. Combine this with Brexit and the trade wars with China, and you have the perfect storm brewing. With the stock markets bearing near all-time highs and crazy volatility going on, now is not a good time to be fully committed to stocks. Gold has rallied along with silver this year, and it might be time to think about putting some of your money into precious metals as a hedge against what the stock market might do. It may be fine, but why take the chance? If you call Noble Gold, you can speak to one of their advisors about the pros and cons of buying precious metals. It's not for everyone, but if you qualify and get in quickly, Noble Gold are doing some special deals on these beauties at a moment. So click the link below to get your free gold IRA guide, or just call 877-646-5347 and make sure to mention X22 Report to get the free gold investment guide. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, what we are witnessing the destruction of the central bank economic system. Every time the IMF, every time the mainstream media, every time they're out there saying the global economic growth is slowing, what they're really saying is that their system is imploding on itself. And there's no way to stop it. The only way to stop it is to push stimulus. But that will only stop it for a certain period of time. And they know this. They know they can't push stimulus for that long. This is why Christine Lagarde from the IMF was out there saying, okay, the Fed stopped raising their interest rates. China is pushing stimulus. We have a little bit of time here. But this wasn't done to help the IMF. This wasn't done to help the central banks. This was done so Trump could get reelected in 2020. Because the deep state, the central bankers, their plan was to bring down the system right before the elections. And Q has warned us about this and told us that this was their plan. Now, throughout all these warnings and Q coming out and telling us that the Fed's going to be restructured, that gold is going to destroy the Fed, there's a message in there for every single person. And if you were listening and if you were paying attention, you would understand what that was. And we'll be talking about that in just a minute. And I think it's a very important message. But the pattern that we've been talking about, where housing is falling apart, it is continuing, not just here in the U.S. Yesterday we talked about Australia. Well, if we look at Canada right now, everything has just gotten a little bit worse. When we look at Vancouver right now, their home sales, they crashed by 46%. This is the lowest since 1985. Now, according to the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, total housing sales were 46.3% below the 10-year March sales average and was the lowest total for the month since 1985-86. So that's not good. And when we look at Australia, when we look at Canada, when we look at the U.S., we can see that the housing market is buckling under the pressure. Remember, the central banks pumped these bubbles up. They pumped them up to make the economy look great. And they knew that these bubbles were going to pop. But they didn't care because they were going to use an event. They were going to blame this on something else. But right now, they're exposed. They're completely exposed. And they don't know what to do about it. This is their biggest fear. This is their biggest worry. And they're trying to figure out a way on how to get around this. But who controls the narrative? Trump and the Patriots. They control the entire system right now. And the central bankers, all they can do is maybe try to blame it on him, blame it on the tariffs. But once the deal goes through with China, what ammunition do they have left? What can they use against Trump? Nothing. Once Trump makes this deal with China, and he has until, the election period, 2020? I mean, he can wait until this whole year is gone. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to make the deal and then hold on to the tariffs until 2020 and then start removing the tariffs just to make sure that China complies. Plus, he'll remove the tariffs before the 2020 election, which will mean the central bankers will have no ammunition whatsoever. There are no tariffs. His trade deal with China has been set. The economy statistical numbers are fantastic. Why in the world would the economic system be slowing? Who's to blame? We know who's to blame. It's the central bank. But as we move forward, we can see that the people's system, the actual nuts and bolts of the economic system, they're falling apart. U.S. factory orders, they've been flat to weak for 6 straight months in a row. In February, factory orders fell 0.5% month on month. And now what we're seeing is factory orders and the U.S. equity market, they're decoupling. They're going in opposite directions, and this doesn't make sense at all. But once again, there's statistical numbers, there's the stock market, and then there's the real economy, the people's economy, where you can touch and feel it. These are two separate things. And you can see that the statistical numbers, they're going in one direction. The people's economy is going in a different direction. And we know eventually what's going to happen is that the system will implode. And again, Trump and the Patriots, they're preparing to transition us out of this system. And just, I think it was yesterday, there was a report that Saudi Arabia was threatening to dump the petrodollar if the U.S. went ahead with the NOPEC legislation. Today, Saudi Arabia is out there saying, we said no such thing. The reports are inaccurate. We are not doing this. They've said this before. But once again, we know they've been cozying up to Russia. We know they've been looking at the petro yuan, and they know that this system is not going to last forever. And eventually what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get out of the petrodollar system. Remember, the petrodollar system, this is a central bank system which was created back in 1971 when we were taken off the gold standard. So the rest of the world, they're starting to realize that the reserve currency of the world, it's coming to an end. Now, Q has been giving us information about how this is going to go down, how the Fed is going to be destroyed, then restructured. And Q has been talking about gold. And Annan asked, do we have the gold? And Q said, yes, and gold will destroy the Fed. Now, if you were listening to what Q actually said here, is that gold is very, very important. Why is it important? It's important because gold is the kryptonite to the central bank's fiat system, which means that every single person should have some type of precious metal, either it be gold or silver. Now, I think when Q came out and said that gold is going to destroy the Fed, I do believe that every single person should also have gold or silver. Because if Q is telling us that the Patriots are going to use gold to destroy the fiat system, the central bank system, shouldn't we all be prepared with gold? This is actually like a hidden message within this, that the fiat system is going to come to an end. The Fed is going to be restructured. Shouldn't everyone protect themselves with some form of precious metals? I mean, if you can't afford gold, remember, you don't have to buy an ounce of gold. You can buy an eighth of gold. You can buy a quarter of gold. You can also purchase silver. And I don't like to use the word purchase. You should trade your fiat paper money in for sound money and use this as your insurance policy for when the fiat system goes south. So when you really think about it, if they're going to bring down the central bank system with gold, every single person in the U.S. should be holding some form of precious metal to protect themselves. Now, I'm sure they are going to have safeguards within this transition. I'm sure they're going to do their best. But remember, we should never depend on the government to protect ourselves, our wealth, or anything like that. That's not what the Founding Fathers actually wanted. The Founding Fathers wanted everyone to be independent. They didn't want you to be dependent on a government. That's why they called it the executive branch. They were an executive, and they were supposed to follow orders from the states and handle other certain tasks. But they weren't supposed to have control over the people and make the people dependent on the government. That's not how this was planned out. I mean, over time, the deep state, the central bankers, created this system so everyone would be dependent on government, because this way they can control the people. So if the message is that gold is going to destroy the Fed, then to help Q, to help the patriots, everyone should have some type of precious metal. It's that simple. Why do you think China and Russia, why do you think they've been purchasing gold? Why do you think India has been purchasing gold? Why do you think countries have been repatriating gold? Because they realize that the time is almost here where the reserve currency is going to eventually fail. Why do you think the central banks around the world have been purchasing gold? Remember, they told us gold is a barbarous relic. It's really not important. Why aren't they loading up on fiat currency? Why wasn't China or Russia loading up on fiat currency? Well, there's a reason for it. Why do you think Q didn't say, listen, we're going to destroy the Fed with fiat currency? No, we're going to destroy the Fed with gold, because gold is sound money. Gold restores checks and balances. Gold restores the economic system. So if Q is giving us this message, we should take this message and protect ourselves by purchasing silver or gold or junk silver, whatever you can do to protect what you have. Because what's going to happen over time, when the system starts to really fall apart, do you really think the fiat currency is going to be worth anything? I mean, look, it's lost, 97, 98% of its value right now. You can see it through inflation. I mean, they pretend that, inflation is something different where the products are going up in price, but really it's the dollar losing value. That's why you need a lot more of them to buy the same exact thing. So that's the message. The message is to protect yourself. The message is to become your own central bank system. Greg Mannarino says this quite often. Become your own central bank. Do what they are doing, not what they are saying. Central banks, governments, will never tell you, hey, listen, the system's about to fall apart. You know what you should do? You got to go out and buy some gold. You need to go buy some silver. They're never going to tell you this. And when you find out what's happening, it's going to be too late. Because everyone is going to realize what is happening and everyone's going to be doing the same exact thing. It's almost like when everyone hears a hurricane coming and everyone says you need to get water. What does everyone do? They run to the store and they try to get water. And what happens? The shelves become empty. You can't find water because you waited for the last minute. The same thing's happening here. No one is going to tell you what to do. No one's going to tell you at the last minute, by the way, the entire economic system, it's falling apart right now. I don't know if you know this, but what you should do is place your order for silver or gold because you really should protect your wealth. Don't worry, nobody else is doing it right now, so I'm just letting you know you should do this at this point. No one's going to do that. This whole thing's just going to ride itself out, and those people who were wise enough, those people that were paying attention, those people, they were purchasing gold and silver all along. Everyone else was sitting on the sidelines going, it's never going to happen. The hurricane's never going to hit. The storm's never going to hit. It's never going to happen. I'm going to wait for the last minute. And guess what happens? It all starts to fall apart. And everyone that paid attention to those individuals, they lose out. And you shouldn't think of acquiring precious metals as purchasing. You're trading in your fiat currency for real sound money. And you shouldn't be saying, oh, what am I going to do with it? I have this silver, round thing in my hand, or this gold round thing in my hand, or even a square, a rectangle, or whatever it is. What am I going to do with it? It's not to be used right now. It's to be used later on. It's to be kept away, just like a retirement plan. Nobody says, oh, that retirement plan, what am I going to do with it? It's pieces of paper that they've given me. Oh, I shouldn't have it. I should just throw it away. Nobody says that about retirement plans. Does anyone say this about stocks? No. Nobody says this about the house that you're purchasing, where they're telling you it's going to go up in value. You're living in it, but you don't get anything from it until you sell it. So why do people always make the excuse like, oh, what am I going to do with this thing? It's just a shiny piece of metal. It doesn't do anything. It's not supposed to do anything. It's supposed to protect your wealth when the time is right. And then all of a sudden, you see gold and silver work for you while everything else falls apart. So get prepared, get ready. The message is out there. Just listen to it. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.